So congratulations, Sony, you made a movie worse than Morbius. I didn't even know that was possible, but here we go. So I had the displeasure of watching Madam Web the day it came out on Valentine's Day instead of spending time with my Valentine. And I'm just going to get to the point. This is the worst movie that has come out this year so far. Absolutely nothing has been worse than it. I really only have seen one or two other movies, but this is just the worst. It's a 1 out of 10. So if that's all you want to hear, you just want to know my general review, my scoring, 1 out of 10. That's it. Nothing about this movie is good at all. So now let's go into more detail. First off, it's important to know that even before this movie was out, it was memed to hell and back. People just had a feeling this movie was going to be bad. It just screamed bad based on its trailer and how it presented its information and all the camera cuts and editing. People just knew this movie was going to be bad, and it was inevitable. And let's just say the whole trend of bad editing, lots of cuts, and a lot of exposition dumping was true with the movie. The trailer really did a good job of letting the audience know what kind of movie this was going to be. So I'm just going to go over everything I didn't like and then go into more details about the story later. To start off, I would say the worst thing about this movie has to be the editing. When I said that this movie had lots of camera cuts, I promise you that doesn't even begin to explain how bad it was. There were so many camera cuts in this movie that I literally had to close my eyes because it was just too much. If a movie is making me close my eyes, that is really bad. There was even parts where I was even questioning, like, is this even the right movie? Do I have my glasses on? But no, it was the movie. It was that bad. The editing and the camera cuts just were so all over the place. There was just so many. Even in the trailer, you could tell they were messing around with the camera so much, making so many rotation turns and everything. I don't know what it's called for the camera work, but there was just so many of it, and it did not add to the movie at all. It did not make it a better movie. Just because you have a lot of impressive shots where the camera is turning a lot doesn't mean the movie is going to be good at all. It doesn't make anything good. It just makes it more annoying to watch. Another thing I wanted to say is that the characters in this movie and their performance was also atrocious and bad. The main character herself was so bland and she was just so boring every time she was on the screen that I wanted to go to sleep or lay over and I didn't even want to watch it. She was just so boring and uninteresting. Even the three girls in the movie that she's trying to protect, because in the movie she has to protect these three girls because she had a vision, they're just so unlikable and so insufferable. It's like the movie was trying to make us not like them at all. There is nothing about them that is good or interesting at all. It does not, like, I did not care what happened to these characters if something were to happen. Just all insufferable. The music choices was also just pretty random and out of place. They tried playing the song Toxic by, I don't even know who made it, just the song. They played it in with the scene of the movie and was trying to like make it subtle in the background, but also during scenes where they were just walking through the forest while nothing was happening. It's like, could this have been cut out? And like, there really wasn't any other times where the music did a good job in this movie. I don't even remember if there was any other song besides probably some stock footage sound effects from old Spider-Man films that they used or something. The story is also kind of dumb. It revolves around a woman who's going through a forest in Peru looking for a spider because she wants to cure her sickness, but she's also pregnant because that's always smart whenever women who are pregnant is going through life-threatening adventures. Yeah, that's definitely wise, but whatever. I guess she had no choice. In fact, that's actually what happened. The doctor was like, hey, if you do this, something could happen to the baby, but she decided to take the chance anyway. You know, if you're someone who would do that, that's you, man. I can't really make that decision. I don't think I could anyway. But besides that, she then finds the spider, and it turns out the person she was working with actually wanted the spider and decided to kill all the other crewmates that was there on the trip to Peru and took the spider and left her to die. But then the woman, the scientist who was pregnant, was saved by these spider junglemen. That's kind of what they seemed like. And they brought them to a pool and I guess infected her with a certain spider power, and then she died. And basically the movie was saying like, oh hey, don't worry, your daughter is going to be perfectly fine, and because then she gave birth, and then the daughter was going to have the powers, and that's what happened. Then we flash forward to the present where the main character is working for the hospital. I don't know exactly what job she has, but she works for she works for the firemen. She works for the firemen, and she does like CPR and all that. That's her specialty. And she starts having illusions and weird occurrences with time travel. And eventually she just realizes that she has superpowers and she wants to know why. And then she realizes that there's 3 girls in her life that she needs to protect. And yeah, basically that starts the entire plot of the movie. Eventually, the guy who killed the main character's mom has a dream about 3 spider women killing them, and he's tired of those dreams, so he starts to get... He sleeps with a woman who works with, like, top government, or the CIA or something like that, or the FBI, and manages to get hardware and devices that can track anyone in the entire world, and uses this to hunt down the women that's been killing him in his dreams while they're young, so they don't grow up to be the spider women that kills him in the future. I've always hated these kind of plot points where it's like, oh, something happens in my future, let me try to resolve it by killing the source of it, instead of just changing myself or doing something to where I'm not in a position where 3 spider women could kill me. That just doesn't make sense at all. I should just kill them and definitely just seal my fates. But honestly, if that were to happen, we wouldn't have a movie. So eventually the 3 girls end up coming and crossing paths with the main character, Madam Web, and I'm just gonna call her that because I don't even remember the main character's name. That's how bad it was. They come across each other at the subway, and eventually they encounter the guy, and he's like Spider-Man, but he has no cool powers. All he can do is crawl on the walls and climb up the ceilings, and he's strong. That's really all he can do. And this begins the cat and mouse hunting journey story where they're all trying to run away from the main villain, and while Madam Web is trying to master her powers. That's basically the story, without spoiling much, that is. I don't know if I really touched on it that much, but I really have to say it again, that the acting in this movie was just really bad. No one stood out as a good character at all, and the acting was just bad. The main villain's voice was very weird and confusing. It's very hard to tell what accent he has, but he was also pretty bad. The 3 girls are pretty bad, and there really wasn't any other characters except Ben Parker, which, surprise, Ben Parker's in this movie as also a paramedic. Setting of this movie pretty much took place in New York, which was probably very cheap because so many movies nowadays take place in just cities like New York, and that's pretty much where this whole entire movie happened. Eventually the character is running away from the main villain and eventually goes to Peru to find out her origin, and that's when she finds out she's Madam Web, and they go to Peru, and they're also in a jungle. But yeah, other than that, this movie pretty much took place in like one city, or probably one street for all we know. The writing of this movie is also, of course, bad. The lines of this movie were just all bad. Nothing stood out. In fact, it was all terrible. Nothing was believable. It's like the actors just didn't give a shit of what they were given. This blame should also be put on the director, because if every performance and the writing is bad, then that means there's something wrong with the director. It's almost as if they didn't even give a shit about the movie. And nothing was pretty original about this movie. They didn't really reference any other movies or reference any other type of plot points that this could be related to. There wasn't even a post-credit scene, which is pretty funny considering Morbius got one. It's just so funny. So that's pretty much everything divided. Now I want to go over some things that really irritated me. Throughout the entire story, like I mentioned before, Madam Web and the 3 girls are running away from the Spider-Man guy. Eventually, she finds out that there are secrets to her past in Peru because she happened to have a book of her mom, because that's all she has to remember her, and she realizes that she needs to go to Peru, so she leaves the 3 girls in the company of Ben Parker, which is her best friend. So she goes to Peru and meets this guy, and by the way, I kind of was irritated how she was in the Peru jungle or whatever, and she was just wearing like a tank top and, you know, no sleeves or anything, just walking through a jungle looking so unnatural. It's just why did that annoy me? I don't know. But eventually she finds the pool that she was birthed in, and the guy told her like, hey, now you have powers, you were born for this reason, you know. And then he did the whole great power comes great responsibility, and everyone laughed and pointed at the screen and was like, oh, I know what that means, because, you know, this is a Spider-Man movie, more like a Spider-Man movie. So before all this, at the beginning of the movie, Ben Parker, you know, Madam Web's best friend, is about to have a baby, and it turns out as she was coming home, her water broke, and they're like, oh no, she's about to have the baby. And Ben's like, all right, we all need to go to the hospital, including the 3 girls that I've been hiding, even though there's a Spider-Man killer trying to hunt us down and murder them. Yeah, let's bring them all to the hospital. Why? Because I don't fucking know. There is absolutely no reason as to why those characters needed to leave the house. I was even screaming at the movie saying, like, why are you leaving the house? You don't need to. And it turned out they didn't, because they just didn't need to. It was just plots. That's why. Then afterwards, they're driving throughout the city. The Spider-Man tracks them because, you know, they have a machine that tracks their faces. So they get spotted immediately after hiding for all these days while the main character was in Peru. And it was just so important that they needed to leave the house and be with this woman as she gives birth instead of, you know, Ben himself. Then eventually Madam Web meets up with them and finds out where they're at. And, you know, there's a lot of battle. There wasn't really any battles. What am I saying? There was a situation occurred where she ran over the Spider-Man as he was jumping midair. And by the way, this was the second time she defeated the Spider-Man after they escaped him from the woods. The only thing she could do was just run him over, and that's what he did. And then she did it again, but she ran a U-Haul truck, or no, it was an ambulance, through a parking lot sign, and he just got hit midair. And it was just so funny because that's the only thing she can do instead of, you know, using her powers. Then one time during the movie, she uses her powers to actually outsmart him. And eventually they find a fireworks building and, you know, they're like, oh, we're going to use this to defeat him because I used my powers and I planned out this entire thing that we're going to do. And we're going to use the power of fireworks. And boy, these fireworks were overpowered. Eventually, she lured the evil Spider-Man killer guy into this building, and she lit off all the fireworks in a way where he would get hurt from the support beams breaking down, and she called in a helicopter to have them escape on the roof. And my god, these fucking fireworks were so overpowered, it's not even funny. They were literally breaking through the walls, and like, they even crashed the helicopter that they called, and they were just knocking people out. And like, how the hell are these fireworks this powerful? What the hell was in this building? Then eventually there were some fights, you know, like him getting close to the girls, like, oh, I'm gonna get you, and then they keep getting away, and eventually they're on top of the building, and she awakens her power, and she's able to be in 4 places at once. That's like the extent of her power, which is so helpful and so powerful. Like, she could be in 4 places within a limited range at once. Like, wow, like, sweet. To help lift up the people that were falling, the girls that were falling. Like, congratulations, Madam Web, you saved the day with your ultimate. Then eventually, like, something happened. Fireworks fell on some signs. The evil Spider-Man died from a sign falling on him, which again is very funny and poetic, because like, he never lost a fight, just things ran into him, and that's how he met his end. Apparently he freaking died. Then Madam Web fell into the water, and then a firework hit her face, and that's how she's blind. And she saved the day, and all the girls are there. And earlier in the movie, she randomly taught them CPR, and they decided to use it now like a MacGuffin. Like, oh, remember this thing we were randomly taught throughout the middle of the movie? We're just now going to use it. And it's like, oh my god, like, are you fucking serious? This is why you had to teach them CPR so you could eventually be saved by them. And then that's really the end of the movie. The 3 women grow up to be Spider Women. At least they're in training to be Spider Women. And then Madam Web uses her powers to be annoying and to be like, bless you. And then one of the girls said, I didn't sneeze. And then she sneezed. And haha, we were all supposed to laugh because she knew the future. And then they all got into their costumes at the end, and they looked so awful. Like, I am just so tired of these cheaply made outfits for these superheroes. Like, it looked so awful. And then the movie fucking ends, and that's really it. This entire movie was basically a scam. It says it's a superhero movie, but there wasn't any superhero movies. It was just 3 women and another woman who could see in the future that she barely used their power at all, and really only used it in very dumb, weak ways. She didn't use it to outsmart him except like once or twice. I'll give her credit there. And then there was the main villain, who was basically a wannabe Spider-Man, or we have Spider-Man at home. He couldn't web sling, he couldn't do all these things. I don't even think he had spider senses, because he had some other woman using God's Eye, which is the device they stole from the FBI woman. They used that to track the women down. Like, he was so useless. He was such a stupid villain, and he died in such a stupid way. This is not a superhero movie. Like, at least Morbius had powers that he could use. It's like, what is this movie? Why was this made? The budget for this movie, by the way, apparently was like, I think $10 million? Let me check. Yeah, my bad, $80 million, because apparently they needed to have all that money pay for the actor's salary, which is what I genuinely think the movie went to. I also do not think this movie is going to be that memed on like it was with Morbius. Like, Sony wants to pretend like they're in on the meme by releasing Morbius a second time, even though that was very stupid of them. I don't think that's going to happen with this. I think they're going to get the picture that this movie was fucking awful. Yeah, and they're not going to do anything with it or make any memes about it, which is, I guess, good. Because this movie was just so much worse than Morbius. I'd rather watch Morbius than this shit. Like I was saying at the beginning of the movie, there isn't even a post-credit scene. You just know a movie, like, this is a superhero movie, and you know it's that bad when they don't even have a post-credit scene. It's not like a movie needs to have a post-credit scene, but that's pretty much a standard in these movies because it gets you hyped for the next one. You know, normally, especially when it comes to MCU or DC or even Sony movies, that typically happens. And it did with Morbius, but that didn't happen with this movie. They just didn't care. It's like they had no faith in this movie, so they said, fuck it, why would we bother making a post-credit scene? We know this movie is going to be trash, so let's just not even waste our time. But that begs the question, why even make this fucking movie if you know if it's going to be bad? Why not change it? This movie was memed on months and months before it was released, but Sony didn't do anything to delay it or, you know, make more changes. Just fuck it, we already made it, just get it out of the way. Hell, even the main character, the actor who played the main character, didn't even watch this movie, and she said, like, people are gonna love it and they're gonna want to watch it twice. It's like, how are people gonna love it and want to watch it twice if you haven't even watched it? Like, huh? How are you confident in this movie? Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this movie. Fuck this movie. It's a 1 out of 10. It sucks. Everything about this movie sucks. Everything is garbage, dumb, uninspiring, so stupid. I never want to watch anything like this again. This is a 1 out of 10 movie. Literally nothing is worse than this movie that has come out so far, and I seriously doubt anything else will be worse than this. It'll be really hard to really be worse than Madam Web. But we'll see. All the other movies coming out, it's in your hands. You have the opportunity to be better than Madam Web no matter what. Anyway, yep, that's all I wanted to say. See ya.